Katie Miller ran through the tall grass behind her house, laughing as the warm morning sun touched her face. The 8-year-old girl chased a bright blue butterfly that danced just out of her reach. New Haven Colony was the only home she had ever known, and to Katie, it was perfect. "Katie, come inside for breakfast," her mother Lisa called from the kitchen window. Lisa Miller worked as a teacher at the colony school, where she helped 43 children learn to read and write. She loved her job almost as much as she loved her daughter. "5 more minutes, Mom," Katie shouted back, still running after the butterfly. The little girl wore her favorite yellow dress, the one with tiny flowers printed all over it. Her brown hair bounced as she moved through the garden her parents had planted. When they first arrived on New Haven 3 years ago, Jake Miller stood at his workbench in the garage, checking his mining equipment before heading out to the asteroid belt. He was a big man with strong hands and a gentle smile. Jake had brought his family to New Haven to give Katie a better life than the crowded cities of Earth could offer. Out here among the stars, children could run free and families could build something real together. The colony had grown to over 800 people in just 5 years. Farmers grew crops in the rich soil, engineers built new homes and schools, and miners like Jake pulled valuable metals from the floating rocks that circled their new world. Everyone knew everyone else, and children played safely in the streets while their parents worked. Dr. Paul Green was fixing a broken water pump when he saw the first ship. The colony doctor looked up from his tools and squinted at the sky. Something dark moved against the morning clouds, too big to be one of their cargo ships and the wrong shape for anything human-made. "That's odd," he said to his assistant, Nurse Kelly Adams. "We're not expecting any deliveries today." More shapes appeared in the sky. Long, smooth vessels that seemed to bend light around their edges. They moved without sound, drifting down toward the colony like hunting birds circling prey. Dr. Green felt ice form in his stomach as he counted them. 12 ships, maybe more, at the school. Lisa Miller was helping 6-year-old Bobby write with his alphabet when the shadow fell across the classroom windows. The children looked up from their books and tablets, pointing excitedly at what they thought might be a parade or celebration. "Look, Miss Lisa," said 9-year-old Amy Cox. "Pretty ships." But Lisa Miller had seen enough news reports from other colonies to know that pretty ships from unknown sources meant trouble. Made trouble. She moved quickly to the window and felt her blood turn cold. The vessels were definitely not human. Their surfaces seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, and she could see no windows or markings that made any sense. "Children, we need to play a new game," Lisa said, trying to keep her voice calm. "Everyone needs to hide under their desks right now. The best hiders win a prize." The children giggled and scrambled under their desks, treating it like any other school game. Lisa reached for the emergency communicator on her desk, but before she could activate it, everything went wrong. A wave of something invisible swept through the colony. Adults stumbled and fell as their muscles stopped working properly. Jake Miller collapsed beside his mining equipment, his tools scattering across the garage floor. Dr. Green and Nurse Adams dropped next to the water pump, their bodies heavy and useless. But the children were not affected. Katie Miller stood in the garden, no longer chasing butterflies. The little girl watched in confusion as her neighbors fell down all around the colony. In the school, the children crawled out from under their desks and looked at their teacher, who lay still on the classroom floor. The alien ships landed in the colony square, with barely a whisper of displaced air. Ramps extended from their sides, and figures emerged that made the children gasp in fear. The beings were tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like stone. Their heads were too large for their bodies, and their eyes were black pools that seemed to look right through everything they saw. These were the Vorth Collective, though no human knew their name yet. They moved with cold purpose through the paralyzed colony, carrying devices that hummed with energy. The aliens ignored the adults completely and focused only on the children. Katie Miller tried to run when she saw them coming toward her house, but her small legs could not carry her fast enough. A Vorth soldier reached out with one long arm and touched her shoulder. The device in its other hand made a soft beeping sound, and Katie felt her muscles go weak. "Mommy," she whispered as the alien lifted her up. Lisa Miller lay on the kitchen, floor, able to see and hear everything but unable to move or speak. Tears ran down her face as she watched her daughter being carried away. All across the colony, the same scene played out dozens of times. The Vorth moved from house to house and building to building, taking every child between the ages of 5 and 15. Bobby Wright, Amy Cox, and the other school children were loaded into one transport. Katie Miller and the neighborhood kids went into another. The aliens worked for 2 hours, methodical and efficient. They took 137 children from New Haven Colony. They left behind the adults, still paralyzed and helpless, forced to watch as their most precious treasures disappeared into the sky. When the alien ships lifted off, they left only silence and the sound of parents crying. The neural dampening field wore off after another hour. But by then, the Vorth vessels were already jumping to faster-than-light travel, carrying their cargo of human children toward an unknown fate. Jake Miller was the first to reach the communication center. His hands shook as he sent out the emergency signal that would reach Earth in 6 hours. The message was simple, but carried the weight of every parent's worst nightmare. This is New Haven Colony. Unknown aliens have taken our children. All of them. Please help us. Similar messages would come from 11 other human colonies over the next 3 days. The Vorth Collective had struck across human space with coordinated precision, harvesting young minds for purposes that no parent wanted to imagine. On New Haven, Lisa Miller sat in Katie's empty bedroom, holding her daughter's favorite stuffed bear. Outside, Jake Miller and the other fathers were already talking about ships and weapons and revenge. The taking had lasted only hours, but the consequences would reshape the galaxy. The emergency beacon from New Haven Colony reached Earth Defense Command at 0300 hours on Tuesday morning. Admiral Peter Kane was pulled from his bed by the urgent call from his communications officer. He arrived at headquarters still buttoning his uniform jacket, but his eyes were sharp and focused. "How many colonies?" Kane asked as he strode into the command center. 12 confirmed, sir," replied Commander Helen Torres, his chief of staff. All attacked within a 72-hour window. Same pattern every time. Adults paralyzed, children taken. Kane felt his stomach drop. 12 colonies meant hundreds of families destroyed. He thought of his own grandchildren, safe in their beds in Colorado, and felt a cold rage building in his chest. Total number of missing children: 431, sir. Ages 5 to 15. The number hit Kane like a physical blow. He had commanded fleets in 3 different wars, but nothing had prepared him for this. Children were not military targets. Children were the future, the reason humanity spread across the stars in the first place. "Get me President Clark on the secure line," Kane ordered, "and wake up every department head. I want options, and I want them fast." President Amanda Clark arrived at the White House Situation Room 30 minutes later. She was a woman who had spent her career solving problems with words and diplomacy. But the reports from the colonies made her hands shake with anger. 12 colonies had trusted Earth to protect them, and Earth had failed. "What do we know about the attackers?" Clark asked as she took her seat at the head of the conference table, Dr. Alina Rodriguez. The government's top alien specialist activated a holographic display. "Very little, Madam President. The survivors described tall gray beings with advanced technology. They call themselves the Vorth Collective, based on intercepted communications fragments." "What do they want with our children?" Rodriguez hesitated. "Intelligence suggests they use young minds from conquered species as servants and soldiers. Children adapt faster than adults to new programming." The room went silent. Every person at the table was a parent or grandparent. The idea of their children being turned into weapons was beyond nightmare. "How long do we have?" Clark asked. "Unknown, but probably not long. Other species have reported similar attacks. The children are usually moved to processing centers within days." Clark stood up and walked to the window overlooking the Capitol. Below, early morning traffic moved through streets where human children would soon be walking to school, safe and free. She thought of Katie Miller and all the other children who would never see their homes again unless something was done. "Kane, I want every available ship ready for deployment," Dr. Rodriguez, find me everything you can about these Vorthok. Get me General Mason from Special Operations. Within hours, the word spread through human space like wildfire. Parents on every colony world called their governments demanding action. Mining ships volunteered to join the search. Even civilian cargo haulers offered their vessels for the rescue mission. Jake Miller and Lisa Miller arrived on Earth 2 days later, along with parents from 6 other attacked colonies. They had spent their life savings on passage to Earth, driven by the desperate hope that their governments would act. My daughter is 8 years old, Jake told the packed Senate hearing room. Her name is Katie. She likes butterflies and strawberry ice cream. She was supposed to start 3rd grade next month. Lisa Miller stood beside her husband, her eyes red from crying but her voice strong. These things took our babies. They paralyzed us and made us watch. You have to bring them home. Senator Bill Hayes, chairman of the Defense Committee, leaned forward. Mr. Miller, what exactly are you asking Congress to do? Whatever it takes, Jake replied. Build more ships. Make better weapons. Send the entire fleet if you have to. Just bring our children home. The hearing was broadcast across human space. On every world, parents watched Jake and Lisa Miller speak, and they saw their own fears reflected in the couple's faces. The message was clear. If it could happen to New Haven, it could happen anywhere. Dr. Marcus Webb was working in his laboratory. When the military recruiters found him, Webb had been the government's top weapons designer during the last war, but he had quit after seeing what his creations could do. For 10 years, he had focused on peaceful research, trying to forget the death and destruction he had once helped create. We need you, Marcus, said Colonel Janet Stone, his former colleague. The Vorthok have technology we don't understand. They can phase in and out of normal space. Our weapons can't even hit them. Webb looked at the photos Stone had brought. Images of empty playgrounds and abandoned schools. Video messages from parents begging for help. He thought of his own decision to leave weapons research. He thought of 431 children who needed someone to fight for. Them. What do you need? Webb asked. A way to hurt them. A way to make them bleed. Webb nodded slowly. Give me access to the captured alien technology and a team of good engineers. I'll find their weaknesses. Admiral Kane was in his office when the intelligence report arrived. His best scouts had finally tracked the Vorthok fleet to a region of space beyond the outer colonies. The alien ships were moving toward a massive space station orbiting a dead star. How long until they reached the station? Kane asked Commander Torres. 18 hours, sir? Maybe less. Kane studied the star charts. The Vorthok station was deep in unexplored space, far from any human base. A rescue mission would be a one-way trip unless everything went perfectly. Start mobilizing the fleet, every ship we can spare. Sir, with respect, we don't have enough firepower to take on an entire alien civilization. Kane looked at the wall display showing the faces of the missing children. Katie Miller's school photo smiled back at him, gap-toothed and innocent. Then we'll build it. Dr. Webb thinks he can crack their technology. The parents are demanding action. And I'll be damned if we let those children disappear forever. Torres nodded. What about the politicians? Some of them are calling for negotiations. The Vorthok made their intentions clear when they stole our children, Kane replied. There's nothing to negotiate. They want our kids, and we're going to take them back. The Admiral turned to his communications officer. Send a message to every human colony, every mining station, every ship in space. Tell them we're going to war. Tell them we need volunteers. Tell them we're bringing our children home. The message went out on every frequency, carried by quantum communicators to the farthest reaches of human space. Within hours, the response was overwhelming. Merchant captains volunteered their cargo ships. Mining companies offered their entire fleets. Parents pooled their money to buy weapons and supplies. Earth was preparing for war. But it was unlike any war humanity had ever fought. This was not about territory or resources or politics. This was about children, and the promise that no parent should ever have to watch helplessly while their babies were taken away. In his laboratory, Dr. Webb worked through the night, studying captured alien technology and searching for the key that would let human weapons strike back. In space, Admiral Kane's fleet began to gather, growing larger every hour as more ships arrived from across the colonies. The Vorthok had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked the one thing that could unite humanity like nothing else, their children. And now, Earth was going to show them what happened when you hurt a human family? Captain Sophia Grant stood on the bridge of her stealth ship, the EDF Hunter, watching the alien vessel drift through the darkness ahead. For 3 weeks, she had followed the Vorthok fleet deeper into unexplored space, staying hidden while her team gathered intelligence about humanity's new enemies. Distance to target? Sophia asked her navigation officer, Lieutenant Tony Cruz. 2,000 kilometers in closing, Captain. They still haven't detected us. Sophia nodded. The Hunter was Earth's most advanced reconnaissance ship, built with experimental technology that bent light around its hull. She had handpicked her crew of 12 for this mission, knowing they might not return home. What are you seeing on the scanners, Rachel? Sophia asked her sensor specialist, Sergeant Rachel Wong. The alien ship is massive, Captain, at least 3 times bigger than our largest carrier. I'm reading multiple energy signatures inside. Some of them match the patterns we recorded from the child abduction sites. Somewhere inside that alien vessel, human children were being held prisoner. She thought of her own nephew back on Earth, a 10-year-old boy who loved baseball and comic books. The idea of him being trapped in that dark ship made her hands clench into fists. Any sign of the children? Hard to tell from this distance, but there are definitely human life signs. Weak ones, like they're sedated or drugged. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. The Vorthok were doing something to the children, changing them somehow. Sophia had read the classified reports about other species who had faced similar attacks. The children who were eventually returned were never the same. Captain, we're receiving a transmission, reported Communications Officer Danny Walsh. It's coming from the alien ship, but it's in English. Sophia frowned. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was young and hollow, like a child speaking in their sleep. Mama, where are you? It's dark here. They keep showing us pictures. They want us to forget home. Sophia's blood went cold. Can you trace the source? It's definitely coming from inside the alien vessel. Multiple voices, all children. Another voice joined the transmission. This one, a little boy. Daddy, I want to come home. They say, we have to learn to be good workers. They say, Earth is gone. Sophia closed her eyes for a moment, fighting back rage. When she opened them again, her voice was steady and dangerous. Record everything. We need proof of what they're doing. The Hunter continued to shadow the Vorthok fleet for another week, documenting everything they could about alien technology and ship movements. Sophia's team discovered that the Vorthok used a form of phase-shifting technology to avoid conventional weapons. Their ships could slip between dimensions, making them nearly impossible to hit in battle. But Sophia also noticed something else. During the phase transitions, there was a brief moment when the alien ships became fully solid in normal space. It lasted only seconds, but it might be enough for human weapons to strike. Send a quantum burst message to Admiral Kane, Sophia ordered. As they prepared to return to human space, tell him we found them, and tell him we know how to hurt them. Back on Earth, Dr. Marcus Webb was having his own breakthrough. In his underground laboratory, he studied pieces of Vorthok technology recovered from the attack sites. The alien devices use quantum field manipulation in ways that human science barely understood. It's like they're riding waves in space-time itself, Webb explained to his research team. They can shift their ships into a parallel dimension where our weapons can't reach them. Dr. Sarah Kim, his top physicist, looked up from her computer screen. But every wave has a frequency. If we can match that frequency and disrupt it, exactly. We force them back into normal space where we can fight them. Webb had worked 18-hour days for 3 weeks, driven by the knowledge that every moment of delay meant more suffering for the captured children. I thought of Katie Miller and all the other kids whose faces were now displayed on screens throughout Earth Defense Command. How long to build a working prototype? Webb asked his engineering team. 2 weeks if we work around the clock, replied Chief Engineer Carl Johnson. But we'll need to test it on actual Vorthok technology to be sure it works, and we better hope Captain Grant brings us something useful. The Hunter arrived at Earth Defense Command just as Webb's team finished their prototype quantum disruptor. Sophia Grant marched into Admiral Kane's office carrying a data storage device and a grim expression. "Admiral, the situation is worse than we thought," Sophia reported. "The Vorthok aren't just taking children, they're breaking them down and rebuilding them as perfect servants. I have audio recordings of the kids calling for their parents while being subjected to neural conditioning." Kane felt sick. "How many children did you locate?" "At least 300 in the convoy we followed." "There's something else." The ship we tracked was heading to a massive space station. From what we could see, it's some kind of processing center. There could be thousands of children from dozens of species being held there. Kane stood up and walked to his wall display, showing the missing children's faces. "Dr. Webb thinks he can disrupt their phase technology. Can your intelligence help him?" Sophia placed a small alien device on Kane's desk. "We managed to recover this from their ship's outer hull. Webb should be able to use it to calibrate his weapon." Webb arrived at the meeting 30 minutes later. His eyes red from lack of sleep, but sharp with determination. He examined Sophia's recovered technology and nodded slowly. "This is perfect. With this, I can build weapons that will trap the Vorthok in normal space, where we can destroy them." Long Kane asked, "1 week to retrofit the fleet? But Admiral, we need to move fast." According to Captain Grant's intelligence, the conditioning process takes about a month to complete. After that, the children may be lost forever. Kane looked at the faces on his wall again. Katie Miller smiled back at him, her 8-year-old. In a sense, a stark contrast to the horror she was probably facing. He thought of Jake and Lisa Miller, waiting desperately for news of their daughter. "Start the retrofitting immediately. I want every ship in the fleet equipped with quantum disruptors within 5 days." "Sir, that's impossible with our current resources," protested Commander Torres. "Then we'll get more resources. Contact every shipyard in human space. Tell them what we're dealing with. Tell them we're going to bring our children home, and we need their help to do it." The word went out across human civilization. On Earth, factories that had been building civilian goods switched to military production overnight. Mining colonies sent their entire stockpiles of rare metals needed for the quantum weapons. Civilian engineers volunteered to work around the clock installing the new systems. Jake Miller and the other parents from the attacked colonies worked alongside the military, engineers refusing to rest while their children remained in alien hands. Lisa Miller organized support groups for the families, but she spent most of her time in the weapons factories, assembling components with her own hands. "Every disruptor we build brings us closer to Katie," she told the other workers. "Every weapon we finish is a step toward bringing them all home." Dr. Webb barely slept as he supervised the weapon installation on dozens of ships. The quantum disruptors were untested in actual combat, but computer simulations showed they should work. The key was timing the attack perfectly to catch the Vorthok ships during their phase transitions. Admiral Kane stood in the main hangar bay, watching crews load ammunition and supplies onto the rescue fleet. Over 200 ships had volunteered for the mission, from massive battleships to small fighters piloted by civilian volunteers. "Sir, we're receiving more intelligence from our deep space scouts," reported Commander Torres. "The Vorthok station is heavily defended, and there are signs of increased activity. They may be accelerating their conditioning program." Kane felt ice form in his stomach. "How long do we have?" "Days, maybe hours. If we don't move soon, we may be too late to save the children." Kane looked at the fleet preparing for launch. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled, but it was also heading into the unknown against an enemy with superior technology. The only advantages they had were desperation, determination, and Dr. Webb's untested weapons. "Send word to all ships. We launch in 6 hours." As the countdown began, Kane thought about the message he would send to the parents waiting on Earth. He wanted to promise them that their children would come home safe. But he had been a soldier too long to make promises he might not be able to keep. Instead, he would give them the only promise he could make, that humanity would fight with everything they had, and that no alien species would ever again mistake human children for easy prey. The fleet was going to war, and they were going to show the galaxy what happened when someone hurt a human family. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the dead star system like an iron storm. 237 ships spread across space in perfect formation, their quantum disruptors charging and weapon systems hot. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of his flagship, the EDF Retribution. Watching the massive Vorth station grow larger on his screens, "My God," whispered Commander Torres. "It's enormous." The alien station was a nightmare of twisted metal and dark energy, 10 times larger than anything humans had ever built. It orbited the dead star like a mechanical moon, its surface covered with docking bays and weapon platforms. Smaller Vorth ships moved around it like insects, their phase shifting, hulls flickering in and out of normal space. "Captain Grant, are you reading this?" Kane asked over the communication channel. Sophia Grant's voice came back from her position at the fleet's edge. "Confirmed, Admiral. I count at least 50 enemy vessels and unknown defensive systems. Children's life signs are coming from the station's lower levels." Kane felt his stomach tighten. Somewhere in that alien fortress, Katie Miller and hundreds of other children were waiting for rescue. He thought of Jake Miller, who had insisted on joining the fleet as a volunteer gunner despite having no military training. All ships. "Is Admiral Kane? Today, we bring our children home. Remember your training, trust your weapons, and show these aliens what happens when they threaten human families." The Vorth responded to the human arrival with typical efficiency. Their ships began phasing in and out of reality, trying to surround the human fleet while staying impossible to hit. Energy beams lanced through space, but they passed harmlessly through the shifting alien hulls. "Quantum disruptors ready, Admiral," reported Dr. Webb from his position in the Weapons Control Center. "But we need them to phase back into normal space to get a lock." Lieutenant Danny Cooper sat in the cockpit of his fighter, watching the enemy ships dance through dimensions. The young pilot had volunteered for the most dangerous job in the fleet, drawing Vorth fire to force them into attack positions where the disruptors could hit them. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Phoenix Leader," Danny said into his radio.
"Right time to make these ugly things angry. Follow my lead."
Their small size and speed made them hard targets, but Danny knew they were flying into a death trap. His job was to survive long enough to give the big ships a clear shot. The alien weapons lit up space with deadly energy. Danny rolled his fighter hard to the left as a beam missed his cockpit by inches. Behind him, Phoenix 3 exploded in a ball of fire, but the pilot's sacrifice was not wasted. The Vorth ship that killed him had to phase back into normal space to fire. "Now, Webb," Kane shouted. The quantum disruptor beam struck the alien vessel just as it solidified. The ship's hull rippled like water, then tore apart as its phase-shifting system collapsed. The first Vorth vessel died in a flash of blue light, and the human fleet erupted in cheers. "It works," Webb yelled. "The disruptors work." But their celebration was short-lived. The Vorth station opened fire with weapons that made their ships look like toys. Massive energy beams swept across space, cutting through human vessels like they were made of paper. The destroyer EDF Courage exploded, instantly taking 200 crew members with it. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Kane ordered. "Get us closer to that station. We need to find a way inside." Captain Sophia Grant led her assault team toward the station's lower docking bays, where the children's life signs were strongest. Her ship, the Hunter, used its stealth systems to avoid the worst of the defensive fire, but even she couldn't stay hidden for long. "Hull breach on Deck 3, reported her damage control officer. "We're venting atmosphere. Seal it and keep flying," Sophia replied. "We're not stopping until we have those kids." Jake Miller crouched behind the gun controls of a heavy cruiser, his hands shaking as alien fire exploded around his ship. The mining engineer had never been in combat before, but rage and desperation made him deadly accurate. Every shot he fired was for Katie, for all the children who needed their parents to save them. "Target in sight," Jake called out. "Vorth. Ship at 2 o'clock, phasing back to normal space." The cruiser's quantum disruptor fired, and another alien vessel died in flames. Jake allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction before turning to find his next target. On the station itself, automatic defense systems came online. Thousands of weapon platforms emerged from hidden bays, turning space around the facility into a web of deadly energy. Human ships dodged and weaved through the barrage, some making it through while others were cut down before they could reach safety. Commander Beth Martinez piloted her assault transport through the maze of defensive fire, her ship loaded with Marines and rescue specialists. Her mission was simple: get inside the station and find the children before the Vorth could harm them. 30 seconds to breach, she called to her passengers. Remember, we're looking for kids between 5 and 15. Human children are the priority, but we save anyone we can find. The transport slammed into the station's hull and punched through with its armored nose. Marines poured out of the ship into alien corridors filled with strange lights and twisted architecture. They moved fast, following the life sign readings toward the lower levels where the children were held. Dr. Webb watched the battle from his command post, coordinating the quantum disruptor attacks. Each successful hit brought them closer to victory, but the cost was terrible. Human ships were dying faster than they could destroy the enemy, and the station's defenses seemed endless. "Admiral, we're losing too many ships," Webb reported. "At this rate, we won't have enough left to get the children out." Kane studied the tactical display. The human fleet was being torn apart, but they were also getting closer to their goal. Sophia Grant's team had reached the station's hull, and the Marine assault groups were preparing to breach the facility. "All ships, maximum attack," Kane ordered. "Give the rescue teams everything we've got." The remaining human vessels threw themselves at the Vorth defenses with suicidal courage. Captains rammed their damaged ships into alien weapon platforms. Fighter pilots used their last missiles. 2 clear paths for the rescue transports. Every human in the fleet understood that failure meant losing their children forever. Inside the station, Sophia Grant and her team fought through corridors that seemed designed by nightmares. The Vorth defenders were fierce but unprepared for human desperation. Sophia's soldiers advanced through alien fire, driven by the knowledge that somewhere ahead, human children were waiting for rescue. "Life signs are getting stronger," reported Sergeant Wong. "We're close." They reached a massive door marked with alien symbols. Behind it, Sophia could hear something that made her heart race, the sound of children crying. Human children calling for their parents in voices weakened by weeks of captivity. "Below the door," Sophia ordered. The explosive charge tore through the alien metal, and Sophia's team rushed into a chamber that would haunt their dreams forever. Hundreds of children from dozens of species were held in individual cells, their minds being slowly rewritten by alien technology. The human children were in a separate section, their young faces blank and empty. Sophia found Katie Miller in the 3rd row, the 8-year-old girl sitting motionless while alien machines worked on her mind. The sight filled Sophia with such rage that her vision went red. "Get these machines off them," she shouted to her technical specialist. "All of them, right now!" As the rescue teams worked to free the children, the battle outside reached its climax. Admiral Kane's flagship was burning. Half his fleet was gone, and Vorth reinforcements were arriving through phase gates. But the children were being found, and that was all that mattered. "Sophia, what's your status?" Kane asked over the radio. "We have them, Admiral. All the human children, plus about 200 others from different species. But some of them are in bad shape. The conditioning process has damaged their minds." "Oh, yes." Kane felt tears in his eyes. After weeks of planning and fighting, they had actually found the children. Now they just had to get them home alive. Load them up and get out of there. "We'll cover your retreat." But as the rescue ships prepared to leave the station, alarms began blaring throughout the alien facility. The Vorth had decided that if they couldn't keep their prizes, they would destroy everything rather than let the humans win. The station's core was overloading. It was going to explode with enough force to destroy everything within 1,000 kilometers. The rescue was about to become a race against time, with the lives of 400 children hanging in the balance. The Vorth station shook like a dying beast as its core systems began to overload. Red warning lights flashed through the alien corridors while Captain Sophia Grant's rescue teams worked frantically to load unconscious children onto their transport. Ships, How long do we have? Sophia shouted to her technical specialist over the screaming alarms. Maybe 10 minutes before this whole place explodes, Sergeant Wong replied, checking her scanner. The alien power core is going critical. When it blows, it'll take out everything within 1,000 kilometers. Sophia looked at the children being carried past her on stretchers. Katie Miller was among them, her small face pale and empty from weeks of alien conditioning. Many of the other children were in even worse condition, their minds damaged by the Vorth programming systems. Load them faster, Sophia ordered. We're not leaving anyone behind. In the command center of his burning flagship, Admiral Kane watched the rescue operation through his tactical display. Half his fleet was gone, destroyed by Vorth weapons and the station's defenses. The remaining ships were damaged and low on ammunition, but they held their positions around the dying alien facility. Admiral, we need to withdraw, urged Commander Torres. If that station explodes while we're still here, we'll lose everything. Kane stared at the display showing the rescue ship still docked with the station. We hold position until every child is clear, not 1 second before. Dr. Marcus Webb worked at his control station, sweat pouring down his face as he monitored the quantum disruptor systems. The weapons had worked better than expected, but the constant firing was overheating the equipment. Several ships had already lost their disruptors to system failures. Admiral, I'm reading massive energy buildup from the station's core, Webb reported. I can redirect that explosion through the quantum field matrix I might be able to take. Out the Vorth phase gates. Kane looked at him sharply. What are you talking about, Doctor? The station's explosion will create a quantum cascade. If I can channel it properly, it'll destroy the alien gate network and strand their fleets across. Dozens of systems. But someone has to stay behind to trigger the device manually. The bridge went silent. Everyone understood what Webb was suggesting. It was a suicide mission, but it would cripple the Vorthok's ability to attack other worlds. Inside the station, Sophia Grant personally carried Katie Miller to the nearest transport ship. The little girl's eyes were open but vacant, staring at nothing. Sophia remembered the bright, laughing child from the surveillance videos taken before the attack. Hang in there, sweetheart, Sophia whispered. We're taking you home to your mommy and daddy. Lisa Miller waited aboard one of the rescue ships, her hands shaking as she watched stretcher after stretcher of children being brought aboard. She had volunteered as a medical assistant, helping the Navy doctors treat the rescued kids. Lisa, we found her, called Dr. Paul Green, who had come from New Haven Colony to help with the rescue. We found Katie. Lisa ran to her daughter's side. As the medical team placed Katie on an examination table, the 8-year-old girl looked thin and pale, with strange marks on her temples where alien machines had been attached. Katie, baby, it's Mommy, Lisa said, taking her daughter's hand. Can you hear me? Katie turned her head slowly, her eyes unfocused. Mommy? She whispered. Is it really you? They said you were gone. They said Earth was destroyed. Tears streamed down Lisa's face. I'm here, baby. Daddy's here too. We came to bring you home. The transport ship's engines fired as it pulled away from the station, loaded with rescued children. Behind them, the alien facility continued to shake and burn, its death throes lighting up the darkness of space. Jake Miller stood at a gun position on the rescue ship, still firing at Vorth fighters that tried to stop their escape. His daughter was safe, but hundreds of other children still needed protection during the flight back to human space. Transport 7. You have enemy fighters on your tail, warned the voice of Lieutenant Danny Cooper over the radio. The young pilot was down. To his last fighter, the rest of Phoenix Squadron, having died in the battle? I see them, Jake replied, swinging his gun turret around. Come on, you alien scum, let's finish this. Jake's shots found their target, and another Vorth fighter exploded in flames. But more enemy ships were coming through the phase gates, arriving too late to stop the rescue but determined to prevent the humans from escaping. Dr. Webb made his decision as the station's core reached critical levels. He sealed himself in the quantum control room and began the final sequence that would turn the explosion into a weapon against the Vorth fleet. Admiral, I'm in position, Webb reported over the radio. When I trigger this device, the quantum cascade will destroy the phase gate network, but it will also create a massive explosion. You need to get the fleet clear." Kane felt his throat tighten. Webb had 3 children of his own back on Earth. "Marcus, there has to be another way. There isn't time to find one, Peter. Those children need to get home safely. This is the only way to make sure the Vorthok can't follow them." The last rescue ship pulled away from the station just as Webb activated his device. The quantum cascade began immediately, turning the station's core explosion into something far more powerful and directed. Energy waves spread out from the dying facility, seeking the quantum signatures of the Vorthok phase gates. One by one, the alien gates collapsed in flashes of blue light. Vorthok ships found themselves trapped in normal space, unable to phase away from human weapons. The remaining human fleet fell on them with everything they had left, destroying the enemy vessels in a final burst of vengeance. But the price was terrible. Dr. Webb died when the station exploded, along with dozens of other heroes who had stayed behind to cover the evacuation. The quantum cascade also damaged several human ships. Leaving them crippled in space, Admiral Kane watched from his bridge as the explosion consumed the alien station. The man who had created their victory was gone, but his sacrifice had saved. The children had crippled the Vorthok fleet. "All ships form up for the journey home," Kane ordered. "We've got our children back, and now we're going to make sure they stay safe." The human fleet began its long journey back to civilization, carrying 431 rescued children plus 200 more from other species. The medical ships worked around the clock to treat the psychological damage caused by alien conditioning. Katie Miller slowly began to respond to her parents' voices during the flight home. The alien programming was breaking down, replaced by memories of butterflies and gardens and the love of her family. Other children recovered faster or slower, but all of them had been saved from a fate worse than death. Jake Miller held his daughter, while Lisa read her favorite story, the same one they had read together before the attack on New Haven. Katie's eyes were still sometimes distant. She was fighting her way back to them one day at a time. "Are we really going home, Daddy?" Katie asked in a small voice. "Yes, sweetheart. We're going home, and we're never going to let anyone hurt you again." Captain Sophia Grant stood on the bridge of her damaged ship, watching the stars ahead. Mission was complete, but she knew the war was far from over. Vorthok had lost this battle, but they were still out there, and they would not forget what humanity had done to them. The rescued children were safe for now, but Sophia understood that this was just the beginning. Earth had shown the galaxy what happened when human families were threatened, and that message would spread to every species among the stars. Behind them, the quantum cascade continued to spread through space, destroying Vorthok phase gates and trapping alien fleets far from their home worlds. Dr. Webb's final gift would protect countless other species from suffering the same fate as the human colonies. The price had been high, but the message was clear. Humanity would fight for their children, no matter the cost. They would cross any distance, face any enemy, and pay any price to keep their families safe. And if anyone else in the galaxy was thinking about threatening human children, they had better think again. Earth had answered with fire once, and they would do it again without hesitation. The long journey home had begun. But for the parents holding their rescued children, it was already over. They had their babies back, and that was all that mattered. 6 months after the rescue, Katie Miller sat in her grandmother's garden on Earth, watching a blue butterfly dance among the flowers. The 8-year-old girl still had nightmares sometimes, and she couldn't remember everything that happened during her time with the aliens, but she was home. "Katie, come inside for lunch," called her mother Lisa from the kitchen door. Lisa had taken a job at the new Children's Recovery Center on Earth, helping other rescued kids learn to trust and hope again. Katie looked up from the butterfly and smiled. It was a real smile, not the empty expression she had worn for weeks after the rescue. "Coming, Mom." Jake Miller watched his daughter run toward the house, and he felt the familiar mix of joy and anger that had lived in his chest since the attack on New Haven. Joy because Katie was alive and healing. Anger because no child should ever have to suffer what she had endured. Jake now worked for the Colonial Defense Initiative, helping to build new ships and weapons for protecting human settlements. Every day he thought about Dr. Marcus Webb and the other heroes who had died to bring the children home. Their sacrifice would not be forgotten. President Amanda Clark stood at the podium in the United Nations building, facing ambassadors from 47 different species. The room was packed with reporters and diplomats, all waiting to hear Earth's response to the Vorth Collective's latest message. 3 days ago, the Vorth sent a transmission requesting peace talks, Clark began. They claimed the attack on our colonies was a misunderstanding. They offer to return some of the children they still hold from other species in exchange for our forgiveness. The room buzzed with whispered conversations. Many of the alien ambassadors hoped Earth would accept the offer and end the conflict peacefully. Clark's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Here is Earth's answer. We do not negotiate with child thieves. We do not forgive those who steal innocence. The Vorth Collective will return every child they have taken from every species, or we will continue to hunt them across the galaxy. The Altarian ambassador raised a tentacle in question. President Clark, surely some compromise is possible. War benefits no one. Tell that to the parents who watch their children disappear, Clark replied coldly. Tell that to Katie Miller and the hundreds of other kids who still wake up screaming. There's no compromise when it comes to protecting children. Admiral Peter Kane stood in the command center of the New Earth Defense Station watching the fleet reports come in from across human space. In 6 months, humanity had built more warships than in the previous 50 years. Every colony now had its own defense force. New technologies based on Dr. Webb's quantum research were being installed on every vessel. Admiral, we're receiving a distress call from the Centauri system, reported Commander Torres. No. Ships are attacking the mining station there. Kane felt his blood turn cold. Vorth. Negative, sir. These are different aliens. The Hacklery Swarm. They're demanding tribute from human colonies. Kane smiled grimly. Send Captain Grant's task. Force to Centauri. Full weapons, free. It's time to send another message. Captain Sophia Grant now commanded the Child Recovery Task Force, a joint human-alien military unit dedicated to hunting down trafficking operations throughout the galaxy. Her ships carried the most advanced weapons Earth could build, and her crews were volunteers from species that had lost children to alien raiders. All ships prepare for quantum jump, Sophia ordered as her fleet moved toward the Centauri system. Remember, we're not just fighting for human children anymore. We're fighting for all children. The Hacklery had made the same mistake as the Vorth. They thought humans were just another weak species that could be bullied and robbed. They were. About to learn how wrong they were, Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked in her new laboratory, studying alien technology recovered from dozens of different trafficking operations. As Earth's leading expert on hostile alien species, she had helped develop new defensive systems for human colonies. The pattern is always the same, Rodriguez explained to her research team. These species target children because young minds are easier to control, but they never expect the parents to fight back this hard. Her assistant, Dr. Jim Walsh, looked up from his computer. The Vorth attacks have stopped completely. Our intelligence suggests their entire fleet structure has collapsed. Good, but there are others out there. The Hacklery, the Nexus Traders, the Shadow Collective. They all profit from stolen children, and they all need to be stopped. Rodriguez thought about Katie Miller and the other children who were slowly recovering. From their ordeal, some kids had bounced back quickly, but others would carry the scars forever. The alien trafficking networks had to be destroyed completely, not just defeated. Jake Miller stood before the Colonial Defense Council, presenting his proposal for the new protection protocols. Every human settlement needs early warning systems and emergency response fleets, he said. We can't let what happened to New Haven happen anywhere else. The council members listened carefully. Jake Miller had become something of a hero since the rescue, and his voice carried weight in discussions about colonial defense. The cost will be enormous, pointed out Councilman Ray Phillips. We're talking about militarizing every human world. Cost of not doing it is higher, Jake replied. Ask any parent who lost a child. Ask them what price they would pay to keep their kids safe. The proposal passed by a unanimous vote. Lisa Miller read bedtime stories to a group of rescued children. At the recovery center, Many of them were not human, but they all shared the same trauma. The alien conditioning had tried to steal their memories of home and family, but love was stronger than alien technology. The monster's really gone? Just a small Altarian? Child named Zix. The monsters are still out there, Lisa said honestly, but now there are people watching for them. And if they try to hurt any more children, those people will stop them. Katie Miller had nightmares that night, as she still did sometimes. But when she woke up crying, her parents were there. Jake held her while Lisa sang the lullaby she had learned as a child on Earth. Katie fell back asleep knowing she was safe. The next morning brought news that the Hacklery swarm had been destroyed by Captain Grant's task force. The alien raiders had demanded tribute from human colonies, but instead they found quantum disruptors and angry parents. None of the Hacklery ships survived the encounter. Similar reports came in from across the galaxy. The Nexus traders abandoned their slaving operations after 3 of their fleets were destroyed by human forces. The Shadow Collective pulled back from all systems with human populations. The message was spreading through the galaxy like ripples in a pond. Humanity had drawn a line in space, and that line was around their children. Any species that crossed, it would face the full fury of Earth's fleets. President Clark received a delegation of alien ambassadors who had come to thank Earth for protecting their own children from traffickers. Species that had suffered under alien raiders for centuries were finally free because humans had shown them how to fight back. "We never thought it was possible to defeat the child thieves," said Ambassador Trill of the Kepler Republic. "Your species has given us hope. We didn't do it for thanks," Clark replied. "We did it because children deserve to grow up safe, no matter which world they call home." Admiral Kane stood on the observation deck of Earth's defense station, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Katie Miller was learning to ride a bicycle. Other rescued children were taking their first steps back toward normal lives. New children were being born on human colonies, protected by fleets that would never let them be taken. The galaxy was a safer place than it had been a year ago. But Kane knew the job was never finished. There would always be predators looking for easy prey. And there would always be children who needed protection. But now the predators knew something they hadn't known before. If you took human children, Earth would come for you. They would cross any distance, face any odds, and pay any price to bring their babies home. And they would make sure the galaxy remembered that lesson forever.
Katie?
Miller chased another butterfly through her grandmother's garden, laughing as the sun warmed her face. Behind her, the house was full of family and love and the promise of tomorrow. Above her, invisible guardian ships patrolled the sky, making sure no alien vessel would ever again threaten a human child. The butterflies danced in the morning light, beautiful and free, just like the children they had fought so hard to save. And somewhere in the depths of space, any species thinking about threatening human families looked at their fleet reports and decided to find easier prey. Earth had kept its promise. They had answered with fire, and the galaxy would never forget.